What is the actual issue? You know, when Trump owns every issue 80-20 by almost every metric, from the economy to crime to immigration, where are you? The high ground maneuver of common sense has relegated it into more extreme measures. Ask Obama, okay.
I think what pulls it all together is that no one person did any of that.
So he's sitting around on a June Thursday thinking about himself and his glory days. And to your point, Smug, I'm starting to warm up to Michelle Obama's POV. I mean, like, what does he do?
Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly didn't hold back. Together, they took a hard look at Barack Obama, not just his image, but the reality behind it. They called out the gap between his words and actions, from his star status to his climate talks, all while flying on private jets. Gutfeld brought sharp humor, and Kelly cut through the spin with clear facts. It wasn't a debate, it was a takedown. And by the end, all that was left was the polished image he'd built up.
Divorce rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men. Terrible that you would applaud that.
Barack Obama's legacy might look impressive at first glance, but when you take a closer look, it doesn't hold up. Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly didn't just highlight the issues, they laid it all out. From the image he built to the gaps in what he actually delivered, they exposed every flaw. The polished speeches, the big promises, the personal brand, it all came under the spotlight. And by the end, the shine had clearly faded.
We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump.
Greg started things off with his signature smirk, pointing out how Obama accepted the Nobel Peace Prize before even finishing his first year in office. The irony? He was ordering drone strikes at the same time, almost like he was playing a video game, but with real lives at stake. It's hard to talk about hope and change when missiles are hitting wedding parties, and that's being passed off as foreign policy.
President Obama's farewell speech soared, towered, dragged. True, it was longer than Reagan's, Clinton's, and GWB's speeches combined. If it got any longer, it would have qualified as a third term. I hope he doesn't ask for anything.
I do have one final ask of you as your president. The same thing I asked when you took a chance on me 8 years ago.
Megyn didn't hold back. She went straight to the heart of Obama's ego, calling out his habit of turning every speech into a performance. For 8 years, his press conferences often felt more like TED Talk auditions. But the message rarely changed. I'm smart, you're not. And if something's wrong, it's your fault. It was less about leadership and more about self-praise. Gutfeld didn't miss the chance to point out one of the biggest contradictions in economic recovery that left middle America behind. Sure, Obama inherited a tough situation. But while Wall Street got bailouts and bonuses, everyday people got eviction notices and pep talks about working harder. His idea of fixing the economy felt more like putting racing stripes on a car with no engine nice to look at, but going nowhere.
So let's analyze. He says Fox goes out of its way to locate and then demonize the poor. For what reason? So we can kill and eat them? His criticism is absurd because he never suggests a motive. FNC is always focused on policies that keep the poor poor, not the poor themselves. And that's scary to progressives like Obama, who fear that their ideology will be exposed as the culprit behind so much.
The Affordable Care Act came in with big promises, but quickly turned into a confusing mess. Megyn Kelly pointed out the irony of calling it affordable while people's premiums shot up and their choices shrank. Even the website, healthcare.gov, barely worked. It loaded slower than one of Obama's speeches. Gutfeld shifted to foreign policy, highlighting the chaos in Libya, Syria, and the so-called red line that meant nothing. Gaddafi was removed, but chaos took over. Syria fell apart, and Assad stayed in power. Megyn nailed it when she said it was like following a GPS with no signal confidently turning into disaster. Then there was the media, which treated Obama like a rock star. Coverage during his presidency often felt more like fan fiction than real journalism. Gutfeld didn't hold back. Obama didn't drain the swamp he threw at a dinner party. While trillions were spent and insiders cashed in, Obama still acted like he was the outsider fighting the system. But after 8 years in the Oval Office, that image didn't quite add up.
Obama's still at it. And in this particular soundbite, she's got thoughts on relationships. Listen here.
Relationships are long and there are also ebbs and flows, right? So I think sometimes people who date don't realize that, you know, in long-term relationships, you're gonna have deep dips. And you're going to have
a bad year.
You're going to have a bad. I tell people, and folks think that this is harsh. It's like you're going to have a bad decade.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've been married to my husband for 30 plus years. I mean, the truth is, if you add it all up, even the year, if the odds were you're going to be married to your partner for 50 years, and 10 of those years.
Megyn didn't hold back when it came to the racial division that quietly grew during Obama's presidency. He had a real chance to bring people together, but too often, he stepped in selectively, adding fuel to the fire instead of calming it. He had the platform to lead with unity, but used it more to lecture from a moral high ground built on shaky arguments. And then came his post-presidency, a mix of Netflix deals, pointed speeches, and carefully timed statements that kept him in the spotlight. While most former presidents step away, Obama stayed front and center. Gutfeld nailed it when he said Obama was like the prom king who graduated a decade ago, but still shows up giving advice no one asked. FOR. And that advice? Usually full of finger-pointing, never admitting his own part. Gutfeld also poked fun at Obama's diehard fans, calling them the Obama Files people who treat every one of his speeches like sacred text, never question the past, and still see him as the one. It's like refusing to block your political ex on social media because you're still hooked on the nostalgia.
Obama's last tweet from Saturday, which is the day this had unleashed it when it started overnight Friday, was, "For decades, Narges Mohammadi has been a vocal advocate for women and girls in Iran. This Nobel Prize is a well-deserved recognition of her courage and the hope that she represents not only for women in Iran, but women fighting repression and violence around the world." How about the women who actually were the victim of repression and violence in Israel? No words for them. Former President Obama, nothing to say about the children being murdered in Israel. So far, I guess he couldn't find time to actually use his little thumbs.
Megyn pointed out the contradiction in Obama's message. He often spoke about dignity and unity. But under his leadership, the political machine pushed division, weaponized government agencies, and fueled cancel culture through identity politics and elitism. It was a strange kind of unity, one that seemed to divide people even more. Greg jumped in to challenge the common myth that everything was great from 2008 to 2016. The economy was sluggish, the military stretched thin, and America's global image was mostly PR built on photo ops and public apologies. Greg described Obama as the guy who shows up at a construction site with big blueprints, gives a speech, snaps a selfie, and leaves while others are left to deal with the mess. Then came the legacy tour, where Obama tried to rewrite history before it had even settled. Megyn called it a one-man parade, no crowd, just confetti and echo. It wasn't about legacy, it was about building a monument to himself. Greg summed it up with biting humor, saying Obama tried to carve his place on Mount Rushmore with a selfie stick. Then came the biggest irony of all, the transparency. President ran one of the most secretive administrations in years. He talked about openness while dodging congressional subpoenas and quietly using government power behind the scenes. He said one thing, did another, and somehow kept a straight face through it all.
Speaking of Barack Obama, he decided to drop a post on X today, and I thought, okay, maybe in the wake of the Pete Hegseth presser, he's going to say something like, no matter how you feel about the Iranian strike, hats off to our, boys in blue, our guys in the bombers. He went a different way. This is what it was.
I'm curious how you're thinking about this eulogy specifically in the moment and all the tensions that you just brought out.
I didn't even want to talk. I was so mad. Part of the reason I think I ended up having anything to say at that moment was when I heard some of the victims' families forgive the shooter. And I thought, all right, let's see if maybe this is a way America can hear me.
Megyn didn't hold back on Obama's education record. Common Core was meant to raise standards, but instead it left parents confused, students frustrated, and turned basic math into a national joke. Then came the student loan crisis young. Americans drowning in debt while universities kept raising tuition like it was a game. In the end, people wanted real opportunities, not poetic speeches. Megyn summed it up perfectly. Obama gave the country a brand, but not a product. His presidency was about selling hope but without delivering results. He lit candles while the lights went out. He played smooth talk while the system broke down. And even now, in every interview, he still holds that same look, head tilted, just enough to seem thoughtful, chin raised, just enough to remind you he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. Gutfeld joked that if smugness were an energy source, Obama could power California through another blackout. But behind the charm was a deeper issue division dressed up as compassion. During his presidency, disagreeing with him often meant being labeled. Criticism wasn't addressed, it was brushed aside. Opponents weren't debated, they were demonized. He didn't change politics, he just changed the uniforms and tilted the scoreboard, all while convincing people he was playing fair. Greg wrapped it up with a sharp line. If Obama was a genius, then we've lowered the bar for what that means. In reality, he was a master of image, a polished speaker with no follow-through. Charisma without courage, style without substance. And this is just the beginning. There's still more to uncover, more myths to break down, and more glossy narratives to fact-check. Because with Obama, the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. It was all one big, overproduced political. Trailer high on presentation, light on delivery.
President Obama took another stand against evil yesterday, lashing out at ISIS, pernicious gang crime and human rights abuses in left-wing dictatorships like Venezuela and Cuba. I was kidding. He went after Fox News again.
I think the effort to suggest that the poor are sponges, leeches, don't want to work, are lazy, are undeserving, got traction. And look, it's still being propagated. I mean, I have to say that, if you watch Fox News on a regular basis, it is a constant menu. They will find.
Barack Obama's post-presidency hasn't felt like a dignified. Encore, it's looked more like a never-ending lecture tour no one really asked for, complete with a moral compass spinning out of control. While he talks about climate change from private jets and beachside mansions, Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly are calling out the double standards like frustrated accountants during an audit. Megyn's not falling for the recycled hope slogans, and Gutfeld's arrows are almost a physical workout. The irony of Obama warning about wealth inequality while collecting millions for speeches that say a lot but mean very little is hard to miss. Gutfeld compared it to a magician lecturing the audience on poverty while charging $500 a ticket and the rabbits. Sponsored by Netflix. Then there are the carefully staged interviews, where the questions are softer than a therapy dog's pillow. Megyn's laughing, asking when journalism got swapped out for political fan fiction. Obama's image has been so polished, so wrapped in PR spin. It feels less like a former president and more like a gluten-free political marshmallow.
Two weird things about this. It's weird Obama's doing this while all this other stuff is going on.
Right.
Like, shouldn't he be helping out Joe?
Right.
Like, he totally ghosts Joe. I would say that he's like the guy, whenever you go to a party with somebody that you don't like and you try to lose them at the party, that's what Obama has done to Joe. He's lost them at the party, and now he's moving on, and then he tweets, and then you find out that he's tweeting about something else.
Greg poked fun at Obama's new role as America's unofficial influencer, always jumping into trending topics with statements that sound deep but say almost nothing. It's like he mastered the art of saying, "Let's all do better," with the confidence of someone who thinks they invented common sense. Megyn took it further, pointing out how the same man who once promised transparency now stays behind a carefully managed media wall thicker than a bunker. And while he quietly inserts himself into today's debates, Greg and Megyn didn't stop there. They tackled domestic policy too. They laughed at the economic spin coming out of press briefings that felt more like Hollywood auditions than leadership. It wasn't presidential, it was pure performance with enough dramatic pauses to make a soap opera jealous. And the takedown? Far from over.